It is day one of the NCAA tournament, but more importantly, it's day, -1 of the Will Wade era at NC State. Reportedly, air quotes, he will be the next head coach at NC State. Cory Smith, Pack Pride, now with us on the Adam Gold Show. I know it's just reported, but let's pretend, just for the sake of this discussion, that it's going to happen. Tell me what kind of an emotional breakthrough this is for the program that is getting their first choice for the first time in like 25 years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Kevin Keatts coaching search went pretty smoothly, but, if you think back to that, I mean, initially there was 3 or 4 other people that NC State fans initially wanted. Obviously, that was one of Debbie Yow's favorites, and she got what she wanted, and ultimately led to some successful years. But you think back to the previous coaching search, the Gottfried, what ultimately landed with Gottfried. The Herb Sendek search was, a successful one, but not necessarily what the fans wanted again. I think this is the first time where you have the culmination of, both sides truly getting what they wanted. And I say both sides. It's Boo Corrigan, I think, getting probably his 1B hire. I think, again, he preferred Ryan Odom,
right?
Maybe because of the familiarity there. But, he gets his 1B. The fan base gets its 1A. The boosters get their 1A. So, everybody gets kind of what they want to in all of this. And, it ultimately should lead to, big boost in NIL and a big boost in energy and something that NC State really needed because, last year Lenovo Center was what it was. It wasn't a great environment, and they feel like this should get fans back, in the doors. Obviously, they're already trying to sell, season tickets again.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that'll have a big boost as well.
They've been doing that. They've been posting on social media for the new era is about to begin before they even hired Will Wade. What kind of a financial push had to be made to pull this off?
Yeah, so in talking to people behind closed doors, last week when they met on Thursday, I was told the number that Wade asked for was somewhere between like the 8 to 9 million mark when it comes to NIL. Now, of course,
wow.
The thought process is, all right, let's try to get somewhere, around 3 times what it was last year, which was less than 2.5. So if you get around, a little over 7 million, that should get you kind of where you want to. I think right now, NC State, with all the bigger boosters kind of helping to get them to that point, they feel like they're around the 6 to 7 million mark in terms of NIL for next year. The hope is that once this announcement comes out, once it's officially announced, once the press conference happens, you'll see more and more people giving to NIL, and the hope is that you'll have more people consistently giving. And I think that right now is the financial buy-in, at least from the fan base and from a roster standpoint, trying to build this roster. As far as the financials for Will Wade's deal, we don't have that officially yet at this point, but there's going to be a much bigger buy-in from the fan base to try to, really, really buy into what he wants to do this upcoming year moving forward.
Yeah, on top of that, we're entering into the revenue-sharing era as well. Cory Smith, Pack Pride, is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. Before we get into the Will Wade part of this, what about the roster? How many of the current players do we think are going to stick around for year one of Will Wade?
Yeah, I think some of that's going to come down to the discussions they have with Will Wade. From what I've heard, as far as where things kind of stand, what he wants to do once he comes in. And that's the thing, is these discussions have been going on for days as far as like what he sees with the roster, because he's been able to take a little bit of time to focus on that. And I think from what it sounds like, he would love to have a guy like Paul McNeil back next season. He also really loves Mikey Wilkins as a guy that could potentially be somebody that's a top 100 player in the state of North Carolina and likes the fit there. But as far as the rest of the roster, it's going to come down to, hey, are you comfortable where I feel you come in next year? Is Trey Parker comfortable being, a secondary point guard again, or, a shooting guard off the bench? Is a guy like Dennis Parker Jr. comfortable being, a secondary guy next year, or does he feel like he's a starter at another program? So we don't know what those player discussions are going to be like. You have to have those meetings before you start getting into the transfer portal. So I think those are going to be critical. But I do think they keep a couple guys from last year and then try to keep the recruiting class that they have coming in as well.
All right, let me just get into one quick thing with Will from an NC State perspective, and then we'll let Cory Smith go at Cory R. Smith on Twitter, Pack Pride. All right, so Kevin Keats came in on the at the end of the Mark Gottfried era, which ended in some NCAA mess, which turned out to be not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things, but you don't want to be involved in it. And Will, in his background is our NCAA issues. Granted, all of the things that he did then are legal now. We can say, oh, so no big deal. That's fine. But still, there were NCAA issues, including a show cause, which expired, which was about to expire. I think it's about to expire. What is the level of, not concern, but how did those conversations go? To say, all right, is it not a big deal because all that stuff is legal now, or was it a big deal? Maybe to Boo.
Yeah, I think it was something that Boo kind of had to clear as a hurdle initially. From talking to people, they were initially surprised. A lot of people around the program said, I don't think this is somebody that Boo's going to hire. And then when the search got serious and they said, hey, I think the bigger element here is the fact that take all the things that he did and move them to now. Move them to today's era, which was several years ago, before the NIL, before the transfer portal got as truly hot and heavy as it is now. They said, hey, we feel like all of those things, if they were done now, are completely legal. So yes, it is a hurdle that he had to get over, but at the same time, this is a different era of college basketball. And as Adam Finkelstein said earlier this week when we had him on our podcast before he talked to Will yesterday, he said, all of those things were just Will Wade and Sean Miller and a couple others getting caught doing what everybody else was doing. And now with those things being legal and all things being, even here, he has the chance to come in and completely change a new program. And I think that's what Boo Corrigan and that's what the administration saw more so than anything that he was connected to previously.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you just said there. Especially when you get involved with the sneaker game. There is money everywhere, which is why those of us who have been screaming for years that these kids should be paid somehow, whether it's through third party or by the schools directly, why we are finally seeing that come to fruition. Cory Smith, Pack Pride, I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much for dealing with whatever we were dealing with here, but we'll talk again very soon.
All right, I appreciate it. You have a good one.
You do. You too.